Hello friends, welcome to The Point. In this session, we are discussing about land, soil, water, natural vegetation, and wildlife resources. We know that the land is a solid surface of the earth that is not permanently covered by water, but the vast majority of the human activity throughout our history, it has occurred in the land areas that support agriculture, habitat, and various natural resources, and that is called as land. We can simply say it as the surface of the earth that is not covered by water. What do you mean by the word soil? The upper layer of the earth in which the plants grow, a black or a dark brown material which consists of a mixture of organic remains, clay and rock particles is called as soil. Water is a liquid substance that is composed of chemical elements like hydrogen and oxygen. Water is said to be one of the most plentiful and essential compounds. It is tasteless and odorless liquid at a room temperature, and it has the important ability to dissolve many other substances. Natural vegetation, it refers to a plant community which has grown naturally without human aid, and they have been left undisturbed by the humans for a long time, and therefore the cultivated crops, the fruits and the vegetables which we grow, it's not a part of natural vegetation. Wildlife resources, it refers to undomesticated animal species, but it has come to include all organisms that grow or live wild in area without being introduced by humans. Wildlife, it can be found in all the ecosystems: desert, forest, rainforest, plains, grassland, and any other areas, including the most developed urban areas. These all have the distinct form of wildlife. Let's discuss about the land's use. Land is among the most important natural resource, and it covers only 30% of the total area of the earth's surface, and all other parts of this small percentage is not habitable. The uneven distribution of population in different parts of the world, it is mainly due to the varied characteristics of land and climate. The reasons for uneven distribution of population is topography, steep slopes of the mountain, low-lying areas which are susceptible to waterlogging, desert areas, thick forested areas, or normally sparsely populated or inhabited. Plains and river valleys, they offer a suitable land for agriculture. Hence, they are densely populated areas of the world. Land is used for different purposes such as agriculture, forestry, mining, building houses, roads, and setting up of industries. And this is commonly termed as land use. The use of the land is determined by the physical factors such as topography, soil, climate, minerals, and the availability of water. Human factors such as population and technology, they are also important to determine the land use pattern. The picture represents how there is a change in the land use over the time. In the first picture, you can see that the agricultural land is more, the trees and plants are more everywhere, whereas the houses are very less. As there is a development in the technology, number of houses increases and the agricultural land has been decreased. In the third picture, we can clearly see that there is an increase in buildings, but whereas the agricultural land has been reduced. The fourth picture, it clearly depicts there is no agricultural land except the buildings, parks, etc. Land can be divided on the basis of private land and community land. This private land, it is owned by the individuals, whereas the community land, it is owned by the community for common uses like collection of fodder, fruits, nuts or medicinal herbs. And these community lands are also called a common property resources. We have learned what is soil. The thin layer of the grainy substance that is covering the surface of the earth is called as soil. It is closely linked to land. Landforms determine the types of soil, and soil it is made up of organic matter, minerals and weathered rocks found on the earth. This happens through the process of weathering. The right mix of minerals and organic matter, it makes the soil fertile. The picture clearly shows us the profile of a soil. The topmost layer of the soil, it is covered with humus, and next below the humus there is a topsoil, and subsoil along with the sand, silt and clay. And below the subsoil, there are weathered rock fragments or rock materials. And below the weathered fragments, you can see the bedrock. This bedrock is also called as parent rock. Let's discuss about the factors that affect the soil formation. Parent material. This refers to the mineral material or organic matter from which the soil is formed. Soils will carry characteristics of parent material such as color, texture, structure, mineral composition, and so on. For example, if soils are formed from an area with a large rocks, let the large rocks be a parent rocks of red sandstone, the soil will also be in red color and they have the same feel as its parent material. This is the influence of parent material. Time. Soils take many years to form. Younger soils, they have some characteristics from their parent material. But as they get older, the addition of organic matter, exposure to moisture and other environmental factors changes its features, and with time they settle and are buried deeper below the surface of the earth. It takes time to transform, and there is a possibility that they change from one soil type to another soil type. Climatic features. This is probably the most important factor that can shape the formation of soil. Two important climatic components, they are temperature and precipitation. These are the important key factors. They determine how quickly weathering occurs and what kind of organic materials may be available on and inside of the soil. The moisture determines the chemical and biological reactions that occurs as the soils are formed. A warmer climate with more rainfall means more vegetative cover and more animal action. It also means more runoff, more percolation and more water erosion. They all help to determine the kind of soils in an area. Relief features. This refers to the landscape position and the slopes it has. Steep long slope means water will run down faster and potentially erode the surface of the slopes, and the effect will be poor soils on the slopes and richer deposits at the foot of the slopes. Also, slopes may be exposed to more direct sunlight, which may dry out soil moisture and it renders it to a less fertile soil. Organisms. The source and richness of the organic matter are down to the living things. Plants in particular, they provide lots of vegetative residues and they are added to the soils. Their roots also hold the soils and protect them from wind and water erosion. They shelter the soils from the sun and other environmental conditions, which helps the soil to retain the needed moisture for chemical and biological reactions. Fungi, bacteria, insects, earthworm and burrowing animals, they help with the soil aeration. The worms help to break down organic matter and aid the decomposition. Animal droppings, dead insects and animals, they result in additional decaying of organic matter. And microorganisms also help with the minerals and nutrient cycling and chemical reactions. Soil erosion and depletion, they are the major threats to the soil as a resource. Both human and natural factors can lead to degradation of soil. Factors that lead to soil degradation are deforestation, overgrazing, overuse of chemical fertilizers or pesticides, rainfall, landslides and floods. And there are few methods to conserve soil. And let's discuss about some of the methods. Mulching. The bare ground between the plants, it is covered with a layer of organic matter like a straw, and it helps to retain the soil moisture. So this process is called as mulching, which is one of the methods to conserve the soil. Contour barriers. Stones, grass, soils, they are used to build barriers along the contours. Trenches are made in front of the barriers to collect the water, and this type of conservation is called as contour barriers. Rock dam. Rocks are piled up to slow down the flow of water, and this prevents gullies and further soil loss. Terrace forming. These are made on the steep slopes so that the flat surfaces are available to grow crops. They can reduce surface runoff and soil erosion. Intercropping. Different crops are grown in alternate rows and they are sown at different types to protect the soil from the rainwash. Counter plowing. Plowing parallel to the contours of a hill slope to form a natural barrier for water to flow down the slope is called as counter plowing. Shelter belts. In the coastal and dry region, rows of trees are planted to check the wind movement to protect the soil cover, and these are called as shelter belts. Water is a vital renewable natural resource. Three-fourths of the Earth's surface is covered with water, and therefore our planet Earth is called as water planet. It was in the primitive oceans that the life began almost 3.5 billion years back, and even today the oceans cover two-thirds of the Earth's surface and they support a rich variety of plants and animal life. The ocean water is saline and it is not fit for humans' consumption. Fresh water, it accounts for only 2.7% in the world. Nearly 70% of this occurs as ice sheets and glaciers in Antarctica, Greenland and mountain regions. And due to their location, they are inaccessible. And only 1% of the fresh water is available and it is fit for human use. And it is found as groundwater, as a surface water in the rivers, lakes, and as a water vapor in the atmosphere. So we have already learned that the natural vegetation means the plants that have not been grown by the humans, and it does not need the help from the humans and gets whatever it needs from its natural environment. There is a close relationship between height of a land and character of vegetations. With the change in height, the climate changes and that changes the natural vegetation as well. The growth of the vegetation, it depends on temperature and moisture. It also depends on factors like slope and thickness of soil. It is categorized into three broad categories: forest, grasslands and shrubs. There are 8 types of vegetation in our country. They are tropical deciduous forest, tropical dry deciduous forest, desert and semi-arid vegetation, mangrove vegetation, moist subtropical mountain vegetation, moist temperate mountain vegetation, and the Himalayan vegetation. Conservation of natural vegetation and wildlife. Forests are our wealth. The plants give shelter to the animals and together they maintain the ecosystem. Change of the climate and human interferences, it can cause a loss to natural habitats for plants as well as animals. Many of the species, they have become vulnerable or endangered and some are on the verge of extinction. Deforestation, soil erosion, constructional activities, forest fires, tsunamis and landslides are some of the human-made and natural factors which accelerate the process of extinction of these great natural resources. One of the major concerns is that the increasing accidents of poaching that result in a sharp decline in the number of particular species. The animals are poached for the collection and illegal trade of hides, skins, nails, teeth, horns as well as their feathers. Some of these animals are tiger, lion, elephant, deer, black buck, crocodile, rhinoceros, snow leopard, ostrich and peacock, and they can be conserved by increasing the awareness. National parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, they are made to protect our natural vegetation and wildlife. Conservation of creeks, lakes and wetlands is necessary to save the precious resource from depletion. An international convention called CITES, which means the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. It is an international agreement between the governments and it aims to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten their survival. And this CITES, it lists several species of animals and birds in which trade is prohibited. Conservation of plants and animals is an ethical duty of every citizen. See you in the next session with some other interesting topic. Thank you.